Okay, let's very quickly talk about inverse functions and one-to-one functions. First off, one-to-one function, even more special relationships. You can kind of think of it like this umbrella. So you have equations, the umbrella of functions fit under the umbrella of equations, and the umbrella of one-to-one functions fit under the umbrella of functions. One-to-one functions pass the vertical line test and the horizontal line test, both. Now, this also has to do with inverse functions. An inverse function is where you switch the x and the y values. The input becomes the output, and the output becomes the input. And we use this notation right here, f to the -1, to symbolize inverse. So we're going to start with number 12. Which of the relations in examples 1 through 4 is a function with an inverse function? So that means they're one-to-one past vertical and horizontal line tests. So we're going to go back up to 1 through 4. First off, we only need to check numbers 1 and 3 because the 2 and 4 aren't even a function, so they're not going to be an inverse function. So 1 and 3, look at the horizontal line test now. Number 1, yes, passes that horizontal line test. Number 3, no, does not pass the horizontal line test. It hits the graph more than once. So you can come back up here. The only one that is one-to-one was example number 1. The other ones don't pass either of the tests. 13, find the inverse of this equation. So inverse, remember, switch the x's and y's. So we're going to change that f of x to a y because it's all functions are an equation, so you can change that function into an equation. And switch the x's and y's because we want the inverse. Now, that looks kind of funky. So at this point, we are going to solve for y to find the inverse equation. So I'm going to add 1. Divide by 2. And then finally, take the cube root. So I get y equals the cube root of x plus 1 over 2. And, oops, sorry, I almost forgot one part. We can change that y back into an inverse of x to show that this is the inverse equation. And if you want to double check that that equation is actually a function so that you can call it f of x, you can always graph it and check that it passes both tests. There we go. In the next video, we're going to talk about piecewise functions.